Hi, I'm Dylan Reddy, Agricom's Western North Island Territory Manager, and today we're up in Northern Taranaki standing in front of this beautiful soft gold kale crop. Today we're going to discuss why you would look to use kale as your winter crop going forward. Currently, when we talk about kales, there are three different types available, being the short cultivars, intermediate cultivars, and then your giant types. So the difference between these are your short cultivars are lower yielding, but are of a higher quality due to a higher leaf to stem ratio. This makes them more suitable to young stocks such as lambs, ewes, and young cattle. Secondly, we have intermediate types. These have good potential yields, very well balanced with a good leaf to stem ratio, making them suitable for all round stock classes. And lastly, giant types. These giant type kales have the highest yield potential, but often a large proportion of the yield is actually in the stem. They have a lower leaf to stem ratio, but are more suitable for large stock classes such as bulls and mixed age cows. One big benefit to kale is that we don't need time to maturity. This means we can graze it when we need the feed and we don't have to wait for the crop to go through its maturity stages, unlike a forage rate. Kale is normally used as a winter feed crop. It has a deep root system with good drought tolerance, and it also has good tolerance to most insect pests once it's established. Kale is generally more tolerant to clubroot and dry rot than other brassicas also. Kale is generally sown from November through to early December. From this time frame, we can produce a high amount of quality feed which can be carried through to the winter grazing. Kale has a greater yield potential than forage rate and has more flexibility on when it can be grazed. The current cultivar behind us here, Soft Gold, has an average yield of between 10 to 14 tonne per hectare. This is of high quality feed as it was bred to have a higher leaf to stem ratio. This higher ratio of leaf to stem also helps to lift the overall crop's ME, as leaves are of a higher quality than stem. One thing we need to be aware of when choosing kale is when it will go to flower. This will have an impact on quality and potential animal health problems in late winter and early spring, when most kales go reproductive and flower. Soft Gold behind us here is a great option for prolonging flowering date due to its very late heading. When working out how much area is required of your winter crop, firstly we need to be very realistic about the potential yield we're going to predict and work off. Once we know what cultivar we're using, we can work back from the sowing date and have a pretty realistic idea. Generally, with something like Soft Gold here, we would work off an estimation of about 12 tonne per hectare to be grown. Second to that, we need to know how much stock are actually going to be grazing this crop. So if we have 200 mixed age cows, and then we need to select essentially what proportion of the diet we are wanting to feed them. Once we have the potential yield of the crop, then we have the stock classes and stock numbers that will be grazing, what proportion of the diet is going to be kale. We can then calculate out how much area is required. For instance, let's go on a scenario, let's say you have 200 mixed age cows and you're wanting to offer them 6 kilos of dry matter per cow per day over 90 days. So now we have the stock class, the number of stock. So if we work off these 200 mixed age cows and estimate, offering 6 kilos of dry matter per cow per day, this is going to equal 1,200 kilos of dry matter per day offered to this herd. Over 90 days, this is a total of 108,000 kilos of dry matter needed for this winter period. If we work off an average yield of 12 tonne per hectare to be grown, then the area required to supply this feed demand equals 9 hectares, without including the transition phase on and off. Our three options of applying seed to the paddock are as follows. Firstly, we have conventional. This is spraying out full cultivation and applying the seed. Secondly, we have direct drilling. This is spraying out into worn out pasture and drilling the seed straight in. Thirdly, we have broadcasting. This is as simple as spraying out pasture and going and broadcasting your seed onto the paddock. At the start of the transition phase, we should introduce the cattle to the crop slowly over a number of days, starting with a low proportion of crop and essentially monitoring the animals and the crop to see how they're coping. Once we're comfortable with how the animals are going and the residuals that are left, we can start to increase our feed requirements and up the rates of kale over essentially every second day. Once we're in this stage, it is important to be aware that you still have enough fibre going into the animals in a form of hay, straw or silage, and essentially ensure that they will never run out of that, and we should hopefully reduce and prevent a lot of animal health issues. Once we've finished grazing the crop and we're left with our bare paddock, we have the option, depending on what the environment is doing and what the soil temperatures are doing, to either come in with a catch crop. This could be something like oats or another cereal, which is essentially going to try and suck up and utilise what nutrients are left in the soil. Another benefit to this is it's hopefully going to hold the soil there and reduce the wash off. If we don't go in with a catch crop such as oats or cereals, we have the ability, dependent on what the time is of the year and what the current climatic conditions are doing, and we may be able to go back in with a short-term ryegrass, a hybrid ryegrass, or a perennial as such. Essentially, once we've done this, we can hopefully get the paddock back into a productive state and have it in for a long time in a perennial ryegrass, or continue your cropping rotation, whatever that may be.